to the Students International Talk Show. Today we have a very, very special guest, Mr. Mark Holt. He's a faculty member of the University of Auckland ACG Pathway. Mark, thank you so much for coming with us today. If you want to describe yourself to our audience and why you are actually here today.
Sure. Well, it's my first time in Ho Chi Minh City, and I've got the privilege of coming over to present a demonstration lesson at our Education New Zealand fair to demonstrate what it's like to be in a classroom in New Zealand. My background is I was a high school teacher, and after that I spent some time in Thailand teaching at a university in the linguistics department. And since coming back from Thailand, I've worked in ACG at our University of Auckland's program, where I'm responsible for the academic English side as we prepare students from all around the world to go into the University of Auckland.
All right, great. So, in your opinion, what is one of the major reasons students choose to study at New Zealand, aside from the beautiful nature and whatnot?
Yeah, New Zealand is a beautiful country, but I think one of the reasons that it's attractive to people from all around the world is that it's unique. It's a country which is multicultural, it's a pioneering country, it's a country full of entrepreneurs. And you'll find New Zealand graduates all around the world leading in science, in business, in entertainment.
Right, terrific. Now, a lot of students, when they're considering to go to New Zealand, between New Zealand and Australia, they don't really necessarily know much about New Zealand. Can you kind of give some advice as to where is probably the best place to look, to kind of get some honest advice about where and why to study in New Zealand?
Sure. The first place you should look is to make contact with a student that's already been in New Zealand. So from our school at ACG, we've got a number of students that have returned to Vietnam, many of them after having studied at university, or they may be working now overseas but returning and being with their families. The second place you should look at is with the institutions themselves and have a look at the kind of programs that are available. And thirdly, talking to institutions such as I'll get the Students International, so I'll redo that one. And then your next port of call is to talk to organisations like Students International that can give you detailed information about what you should do and what your choices are.
Fantastic, fantastic. Now, a lot of our students, they're really nervous when they go to study abroad in a country like New Zealand or Australia, because the funds are obviously, the students who go to New Zealand or Australia, they obviously have to pay a higher fee for their tuition fees. And a lot of students are sometimes affected by the changes and fluctuations in currency. Now, I know the Australian dollar and the New Zealand dollar is quite stable. It's quite a stable currency. However, overall, for their entire, study abroad period while they're in New Zealand, can you provide some insight as to why New Zealand might be way more affordable than people might actually think?
Sure. I think you've got to look in the long term, and you've got to look at the value for education that you're getting for the dollar paid. So New Zealand is very competitive with its fees compared to certain other countries, and the value of the kind of education and its international reputation is right up at the top of the world. The University of Auckland program, which we're working for, is that's one of the top 1% of universities in the world.
A lot of our students, they want to know, does ACG offer, or not necessarily just ACG, but institutions in New Zealand offer scholarships? And since you work within the University of Auckland and through the ACG pathway, how could they get scholarships and what is available?
Okay. Well, ACG has its own application form for scholarships. So for the Pathways program, for example, our foundation course, there was a $5,000 scholarship available. And for our high schools, up to 40% of the first year's fees can be applied for as a scholarship. So again, it's important to talk to your institution and to apply. If you don't apply, you won't find out.
Right. Okay, so you heard the answer. Make sure you apply to everything or every opportunity that is available. Okay, great. Now, considering that many students want scholarship, and from our experience, that a lot of the scholarships that are offered are actually, or a lot of the scholarships that are offered from institutions are much smaller value. But when students are looking for scholarships, or when they see scholarship from, you know, the New Zealand government, and it says they pay full tuition fees, do you have any insight as to the reality of that type of scholarship?
Right, well, the reality of that scholarship is there's only going to be one, maybe two students in a year that is going to get that kind of award. So it's attractive because it focuses attention on a country, but as I said, you need to look at the overall value of the education you're getting. We do offer some scholarships, but we can't afford to offer them to everyone. But what's important is your life and your career you're going to go into. So don't be disappointed if you miss out on the very few big scholarships that there are. What you need to think about is how are you being prepared for a successful graduate future.
Perfect. So let's move on to careers and to opportunities that are available in New Zealand. Practical skills is like this big buzzword right now. Everyone is wanting tangible, hands-on type of skills. Considering that ACG and kind of the pathway programs that they offer, as well as the high schools, do they help students prepare? Do they have any type of practical skills built within their programs, or perhaps there's a way, or just how they teach their curriculum that it's already built in?
I guess under practical skills it includes the ability to work as a team, and that's probably the number one job requirement in most modern jobs, particularly high-level jobs. So collaboration, communication are major features of the way we teach, because we're preparing students for New Zealand universities that are going to be teaching and expecting the same kind of skills when they go on. Practical work in terms of the sciences is just standard in a New Zealand school. We've got very well equipped laboratories at the ACG Pathways program I work. Mm-hmm. We have highly qualified teachers. Right. One of the teachers I work with has a doctorate. He was a university lecturer and chose instead to come and teach at ACG because he wanted to give hands-on skills to students day to day, rather than sitting there and writing research documents. So all of us are passionate about passing on our skills. Our faculty, unlike most high schools, has quite a number of doctoral graduates. I've got a doctorate in education and a master's in applied linguistics for my job. The colleagues I work with have doctorates in mathematics, biology, economics, and so on. So we're a professional and passionate group of teachers that want to pass on those skills to our students. I guess another thing that's kind of taken for granted now is technology. In our classrooms, all of the students are using iPads. We're simulating experiments, communicating through iPads, not just using them as a replacement for pen and paper, but really getting students to use the computing power both for analysis and for communication.
Wow. So going off of what you just said, the fact that these high school students are going into university and they're looking for, at the end of their university, a high, well, not necessarily a high-paying job, but a fulfilling and obviously stable job, something that they can prosper in. And considering your understanding of the education environment, what currently is in demand right now, and what should students maybe be looking for, or what should they be trying to focus their attention on when they go to study at university?
Yeah, I think the job market is changing so quickly that students need to be responsible for their own learning, and they need to have an attitude that they will keep on taking on new challenges, and to show that kind of personal management as well as leadership, which they can begin when they're in their educational pathways and further on in university. it's always going to be difficult to know what you're going to be doing in 10 years' time. And I think it's going to get more and more difficult. But the ability to learn, the ability to be independent and creative, they say that the top 3 skills are creativity, collaboration, and the last one. Creativity, collaboration, and critical thinking. And I'd add to that communication skills as well.
Many international students who study abroad in New Zealand are looking to build that life. So stemming from the fact that they enter New Zealand for high quality education, they enter New Zealand in the hopes that they will have better paying careers, and ultimately they enter New Zealand because it may become their home. With that being said, a lot of international students, when they graduate, they aren't in the position to make New Zealand a home, or they aren't in a position to take available job opportunities. What would you recommend to someone who is trying to potentially contribute long term to the New Zealand economy and potentially call New Zealand home?
Right. I think all New Zealanders are international citizens. We're such a small country that most of our businesses are based around export.
Oh, okay.
So we have our eyes overseas all the time. And that doesn't mean that we let go of our culture, and part of our culture is being multicultural. So in terms of contributing to the economy, most New Zealanders experience time working overseas, and that's why there are so many New Zealanders in leading positions around the world in different fields.
Sure.
But when a student comes to New Zealand, one of the things that we do offer is a 20-hour work visa. So students often get practical experience when they're in New Zealand, and they can go out not just having studied in New Zealand but experience work life in New Zealand. Many of them will experience some time with a homestay family, and so they become ambassadors to the rest of the world when they go out, and often come back in and make their own homes and families in New Zealand as well.
Okay, great. Okay, let's go to trying to build a better picture and better understanding of what life is actually like in New Zealand. We know it's beautiful. We know, The Hobbit and The Lord of the Rings and Pirates of the Caribbean was filmed there, and I'm sure many more movies will be filmed there. But what are some common misconceptions for the international student, in your opinion, and what are some common cliches about life in New Zealand in general?
I think one misconception that it's not so much about New Zealand, but it's more about education, is, and it comes from the home country, that the teacher will not be approachable. And when they come into New Zealand, students are often surprised by how friendly the teachers are. And the teachers keep saying, look, come and see me in my office, send me an email, talk to me, because we want to have a personal relationship with the students to get the best out of them. So our job in front of the class is not our only job. We're really there to help, to mentor students and to be their friends to a certain extent. To be friends not of the same age, but as people who have a genuine concern for your well-being and for your success, both in the present and in the future. So that's a misconception students bring into it. Most New Zealanders live in the city.
Right.
We've got some beautiful countryside which we go out to. But our cities are very diverse, very cosmopolitan. You can get great Vietnamese food. You get food from just about every other country in the world in our major cities, Auckland, Wellington, Dunedin, Christchurch. In terms of culture, we've got great entertainment, ski fields, great beaches, but you can find in New Zealand what you would find in most major cities around the world.
Fantastic, awesome. Okay, moving forward, do you guys help some of those students view some of those beautiful places while you're there? And obviously they're in the cities, but to get the best out of New Zealand, if a student is in high school or in the undergraduate pathways, maybe does ACG kind of take them out and help them branch out?
Yeah, we do. We do in different ways. One example is our geography class, which is a very popular class. Volcanic city, full of hot pools that you can soak in. It's a major tourist destination. So the students that go there experience that kind of geological attraction, but it is also a place which is the centre of Maori culture. And so they get to experience traditional Maori food, dance, song, and lifestyle as well. So that's just one example. New Zealand school term has generous holidays, so our students in the pathways level certainly take advantage of those holidays and travel down to the South Island. They often group up with other students that they meet and go on an adventure or holiday together.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Staying on the topic of just life in New Zealand in general, what can a student expect to spend a month? It
depends very much where you are. I'll talk about high schools for starters. So if you're in Auckland, if you end up living in the centre of Auckland, then or studying in the centre of Auckland, then you will either have higher accommodation fees because you're a central city, or higher transport costs. However, if you choose one of the other ACG high schools, such as Strathallan, they tend to they're quite close to the centre, but they're out where you can often get very reasonable board and very nice homes quite close to the school, so you can just walk to school. So your transport costs will be zero.
Okay.
If you choose the ACG Pathways program in Wellington, again the accommodation cost is less than in Auckland. And we also have outlying campuses. For example, we have a new high school in Tauranga, and Tauranga is a beautiful beach area. Now let me get back to your question about cost.
Yes.
So in dollar value, New Zealand dollars, so you need to take a lot off that to convert it into US dollars. You can probably get board between $200 and $300 a week.
Okay.
So depending on whether you're walking to school or whether you need to catch a bus, you could add up to maybe $50 to $60 transport fees per week, or it could be $0 per week.
Okay.
So it depends very much on where you are. In terms of holidays, you can holiday quite cheaply if you travel on the bus and sleep in youth hostels, in dormitories. So it doesn't have to cost a huge amount of money to travel around the country.
Right.
In fact, if you travel in summer, you can pitch a tent. A lot of people go camping in New Zealand. We have no poisonous animals like snakes or anything like that, unlike Australia.
Yes.
And so it can be very pleasant and very, very cheap.
Wow.
Just to travel on the bus, cycle, hitchhike, and we're quite a safe country for that kind of thing.
Awesome. And you said many of the ACG students do travel.
They do.
Oh, wow.
In our program, we have a 2-week vacation coming up in April. We have a 3-week vacation in July, a 2-week vacation in October, and then often you've got 9 or 10 weeks before the university academic year starts.
Wow.
Now, a number of students go back home in that time, but quite a number of students choose to stay on.
I've heard from a few students that perhaps they get bored, or perhaps they don't know necessarily what to do when they're studying abroad in New Zealand. But I know personally that I have a few friends that they really enjoy their life and live in Wellington. But considering that the New Zealand lifestyle may be a bit slower than Mane, Ho Chi Minh City, there is a major difference in terms of population size. What would you kind of respond to that?
Yeah, I think it depends on what people think is an exciting life. Now, I know a lot of people from big cities that their main hobby is shopping, and that doesn't really seem that exciting to me. Yeah. Now, New Zealand's a sporting country, and there's a lot of opportunity to get involved in sport. You don't have to be good. So every weekend there are everything from triathlons to indoor soccer that students are welcome to get involved with and to get to know other people, and it's a great sporting experience and social experience as well. The whole our back door is some beautiful countryside for hiking. People get involved in hunting and fishing. So to me, those are pretty exciting things. But if you like shopping, there's still plenty of shopping you can do. There's plenty, as I've mentioned before, there's plenty of culture, entertainment, that kind of thing in New Zealand. But I'd really recommend that if you come to New Zealand, do some stuff you might not have done in your home country, such as go out hiking, sleep overnight in a tent in the bush, go out to the beach, swim in the surf, pick up a sport. We're a very active country, and there are so many opportunities for you to get involved in that kind of thing.
Wow, that sounds great. Considering that you said if you're a sporting country and that there's so many activities for people to do, that must mean they're not working very long hours. It must mean there's a healthy kind of work-student life balance. Can you comment on that?
Yeah, I think you're expected to be focused when you're in the classroom. So it's not the kind of place where you go and you fall asleep during the lessons and then you do catch-up classes in the evening or something like that. You'll have homework, but then the weekends, sure, you need to do some study. But most students manage to have a healthy balance of life. In the Pathways program that we've got, you don't have to stay at school the whole day, so classes start at 8:30 and finish at 5. But you'll have anywhere between 2 to 4 hours in one day that you could be out. You could be at a gym, you could be doing some extra study, so that means that you're free in the evening and in the weekend. So it's up to you, but we find that the students that do the best are the ones that have a balanced lifestyle.
Right, okay. So you're telling their parents to get out of the house, to literally explore and...
That's right, because you're going to need that for your English communication ability.
Right. And
you're going to need that for the kind of skills that I was talking about with collaboration. You're not going to make a mark on this world if all you can do is answer exams. So if all you can do is memorise the answers to exams, you're not going to be very useful in the real business world or the real science world.
That's a very good point you make. Okay, moving forward. This is a bit of a myth. Vietnamese think that it's difficult to make local friends. Everything that you've said today is the opposite of that. But perhaps Vietnamese students don't know how to start, or maybe they don't know how to approach a local. If I were to approach you as an international student, what would you tell me to do, or what would make it much more receivable?
Okay. I'll just take one step back. To me, really good advice, even for students that are a bit older, is to stay with a Kiwi homestay when you first arrive. Okay. Now, you might, so I'm thinking more of the Pathways students at the moment, they might be really keen to leave home and to get their own apartment or something like that, but that you can isolate yourself from New Zealanders if you do that. So if you plan on staying with a New Zealand family for, say, 3 to 6 months, there's some real advantages in that, and you hook into a network of people that they've got their relations and their friends, and they become like your relations and your friends as well. For the younger students going to high school or intermediate or primary, definitely make sure that you get into a New Zealand homestay. New Zealanders come in all national backgrounds and colours and previous languages or bilingual. And I think the key thing is, my advice, best advice, is that when you move to a new country, it's the first 3 months that are critical, because it really seems exciting at that time, and that's the time when you're willing to get out and break down your barriers, go up to people and say hello. The sports clubs, social clubs, staying with the family. A lot of students choose to go along to a church. They might not be Christian, but they choose to go along to a local church, or maybe some other kind of religious organisation, just to understand what a Kiwi culture's like. So there's plenty of ways that you can get involved.
Awesome.
I would say one thing too. Vietnamese, we do have a reasonable size of a small community of Vietnamese. Our Vietnamese students make friends with students from all around the world. They kind of stand out, and they don't stick, because there aren't a lot of them. They can't just stick in a small Vietnamese group.
Right.
So they kind of naturally, even though they might be a bit shy, kind of get forced into being friends with every other person that's there.
Okay. You have a student coming, say, next week, and they're going to get off the plane. What would be the very first piece of advice that you give them once they step out into New Zealand? They're ready for an entirely new lifestyle, ready for an entirely new career path. What would be your best piece of advice for them the moment they leave that plane?
I'd say speak English. Just start talking. Don't be worried about the mistakes you make. But the moment you meet somebody in customs, or even as you get off the plane, say, see you later, g'day mate,
right?
And just talk, just be friendly. Nobody's going to criticise you for your accent. We're used to lots of accents. We're a tourist country. We welcome people from other countries. Just get out there and practice your English and talk and talk and talk.
All right, fantastic. Everyone, Mark, thank you so much for being here today. And for any other questions that you guys have regarding misconceptions, or if you're interested in some of the pathways that Mark was speaking of today, please don't hesitate to contact us. Comment on the links below, and make sure you come to our office for any other further questions that you may have. All right, thank you so much, and we'll see you guys next time.
At ACG Education, it is our belief that learning should be defined by the exceptional. This has driven us to create an innovative, student-centred learning community that provides outstanding education for people of all ages. Our commitment to excellence is demonstrated across the education spectrum, ranging from early childhood, academically focused schools, university pathways, and vocational offerings. Today, over 13,000 students and 1,000 staff come together in a growing number of preschools, schools and vocational colleges at 35 campuses across New Zealand, Indonesia and Vietnam. Wherever we are in the world, we're committed to delivering a holistic education and a nurturing learning environment for students of every age and level, helping every one of our students unleash their potential, building bright futures. ACG Education comprises of early childhood centres, ACG schools, ACG pathways and New Education Group, our vocational and higher learning division offering relevant career-focused skills and qualifications.